just preparing, setting up, redirecting. Okay, we might be here. Hello. Let's see. Yes, it looks like we're here. Welcome, everyone. It is Britt and Kelly back for our March astrology chat. We hope you are doing well and that you are, I don't know, maybe enjoying some Venus in Pisces, whatever that looks like for you. I have definitely been enjoying it. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping it's been good for everyone. Uh, so we're going to look at March, Britt. What's on your highlights list for the astrology of March 2026? I mean, there's a lot to choose from.
There is a lot. Yeah, I'm just checking my notes. Yeah, there's a lot of just like Pisces energy, which makes sense because we're in Pisces season, but then we have Mars entering Pisces soon. We
Yes.
have this eclipse in the Virgo Pisces axis also early in
Mm-hmm.
March. So, and then we have Jupiter stationing, of course, in the middle of the month, which is related to Pisces because Jupiter rules Pisces. So everything that's happening there is getting a boost and getting a bit of yeah, some new energy with that station happening. So it feels compared to February like a bit more, there's a bit more possibility,
Yes.
I
Oh, I
feel.
like that. Yes. Yeah, there is. I thought about that myself, like Mars coming into Pisces, plus we've got this Mercury retrograde happening in Pisces. It sort of
Yep.
feels like I know Saturn has just left the Pisces building, but we've still got some stuff going on. Thinking a little bit about the Mars there of like, okay, we've had to maybe go deep or do some more substantive restructuring over the last few years with Saturn in Pisces. And now Mars arriving on the second of the month. It's just sort of like, okay, let's get on with it. What are the decisions? Like, if you've already navigated fear or overcome, worries or insecurities, which may have been what you were dealing with while Saturn was in Pisces, what can you do from this more mature, wise place about the
Yeah.
Pisces part of your chart and life?
Yeah, and I think that's also why I was thinking of the word possibility.
Oh,
Because
yes.
because
Yes.
Saturn is not there anymore, and of course Saturn is so good at saying no and limiting
Yes.
us and restructuring, redefining, reshaping. And then now with Saturn in Aries, it's like, okay, Pisces, the Pisces realm is free. It's released from that burden, right? That heaviness.
Yes,
So there's
yes.
there's more possibility. And then adding in that Jupiter station later on, it's like, okay, we can start moving again. And that feels like really productive. I feel like there's a lot we can start doing and achieving in this sector of our charts.
Absolutely. I think the Jupiter station direct is probably one of my picks of like the loveliest things happening this
Mm,
March. So Jupiter will station direct. It'll be 15 Cancer. It's around the 10th or 11th of the month, depending on, where people are geographically. And it does sort of kind of say, like, here's the cosmic green light. We're not rushing forward, but we're slowly inching forward or finding our way or feeling our way forward. And then yes,
mm.
and it is the ruler of Pisces. So with Mars there, it's like we get going. The new moon later in the month, the 18th or 19th, which is in Pisces, which will be ruled by Jupiter, which has just station direct. Like that feels like a real breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that Jupiter station direct. That feels like an auspicious, kind of encouraging omen of some kind.
Yeah, and we still have like a good chunk of Jupiter and Pisces left, right? Because the station happens right in the middle of Cancer, like at 15 degrees. So we still have the other 15 degrees left to cover, and that will slowly, build
Yes.
some momentum. So there's still, for us, it feels we still have a couple of months of that beautiful transit left until we get Jupiter in Leo, which is, also nice, but, not exalted. So we have to really
Yes.
milk this.
Yes, you're right, Britt. Yeah, absolutely. Jupiter just at the midpoint of Cancer. Like we still have Jupiter to cover half the sign. So, the rest of March, April, May, and June, like we do have a number of months to kind of soak in if there's wisdom, if there's support and encouragement, if there's guidance, if there's opportunity. Like you mentioned earlier, like Saturn so often kind of says no, and we always think about Jupiter as saying yes. I really think that the invitation this March is to remember or remind ourselves the things that we want to say yes to.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that's so helpful after some of the more heavy transits that we've had. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, of course, March has Mercury retrograde
Yeah.
for about 3 weeks in Pisces and ruled by Jupiter. I don't know. There's something about this Mercury retro in Pisces that is sort of like remembering forgotten dreams.
Mm. Yeah.
Again, thinking about it happening in the sign that Saturn has just left. Like, what have you been too burdened by? Like, if you've been too burdened, what dreams have you neglected? Or you've been maybe dealing with Saturnian necessities, and now Saturn's gone. What are the wishes and the hopes
Mm.
and the dreams? What are the fantasies that you want to like remember or reacquaint yourself with?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I feel like also that, that Jupiter trine to the Mercury, it really helps to kind of give that little nudge of like, hey, within all the chaos and within all the,
Yes.
fuzzy brain that is part of a Mercury and
Yes.
Pisces retrograde, like remember what's possible. Remember what you envision, right? What you want to see and what you really believe in. I do like that.
Yes, yes. I think it's really true. And this is one of those like really layered Mercury retrogrades where technically, Mercury is not in great condition in Pisces. But the whole time Mercury's in Pisces, it's ruled by this really elevated, amplified
Yeah.
Jupiter. And I think there's some good stuff like towards the end of the month after the retrograde, where Mercury is now moving forward. It's making that kind of third trine to Jupiter. Or maybe the third trine's early in April, but it's kind of moving back into that. I feel like there's some big visions or big plans or like major stuff to do with like the next chapter for people
Mm.
that towards the end of March we really start to see like pieces falling into place or things starting to come together.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That feels
Yeah.
nice. It's nice to have some
I know
uplifting
it's
news.
well, yeah, because for all of Mercury, like maybe it's a bit dazed and confused, it's a bit late, it's a bit forgetful in Pisces.
Yeah.
It's not, it does have a hopeful undertone or a sense of like, let's find possibility or something to look forward to.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, and I was also thinking about all the Pisces stuff because there's of course a lot happening there. And I was thinking of some associated myth and story.
Yeah.
And so one that really comes up also is the Salmon of Wisdom. It's a Celtic myth. And it's about, this really special fish that if you eat it, you know all the secrets of the universe. But the thing
Ah,
about this story, and I won't go into it fully, is like at some point in the story, there's just a little drop of fat that ends up on a boy's thumb, and he licks it because it hurts, and then he licks it, and that is enough to know all the secrets of the universe. So it's just, and it really
wow.
reminds me of also this axis between Virgo and Pisces, where Pisces really
Yes.
is like, wow, this little drop contains the entire universe, right?
Contains it all. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
Virgo on the opposite end will be like, oh, this is the universe, but I will zoom in on this specific detail
This
that is just
little
a bit off.
detail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story. Yeah, the idea that the whole is contained in one drop kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And you just need a little bit and just to get like really
Yes.
tripped out in a way by like, whoa, what is all this?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost like to me, it's evoking a little bit of like there's magical, mystical things, but also psychedelics in the way that
Mm,
traditional peoples intentionally use psychedelics to have experiences that would help them kind of find the vision for
yeah.
how their society or culture would move forward.
Yeah.
And this Mercury, Pisces, Jupiter piece that is such a big theme throughout March really feels like each of us cultivating a connection with maybe divine or the
Mm-hmm.
wisdom, the madness of like
Yeah.
magical knowledge and how we don't want to take too much of that because we don't want to actually go mad. We just want a little bit that we're inspired outside the regular realms or the kind of everyday norms, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. And that can be challenging in a Mercury retrograde because then, just a little bit can really become super big. And then you get that meme of that guy, I think it's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's like, connecting the dots between all kinds of things that are not
Yes.
related in any way. That's like
Yes.
maybe a bit of a challenge with Mercury and Pisces in general, but then also those affirmations from Jupiter of like, yeah, yes, this is connected. Yes, add this in, right? It's like there's
Yes.
also that piece.
There's so many bits to it. And
Mm.
you've mentioned, like, I know we're talking a lot about Mercury retrograde, but you mentioned the Virgo eclipse. And I think that's worth a few minutes to discuss. Like the Mercury is the ruler of the Virgo eclipse, but the eclipse
Yeah.
is its own thing, Tuesday, 3rd of March. So are there any particular themes or insights that you're kind of connecting with as you think about that Virgo lunar
Yeah.
eclipse?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a lunar eclipse, right? So the moon, it's a full moon eclipse. And so
Yeah.
you get this normally with the full moon in Virgo, I usually associate this with, mental clarity, this ability to
Mm,
see clearly and having these epiphanies about where things belong and, being able to find order within the chaos. But then
mm.
you have that Mercury and Pisces retrogrades ruling this eclipse. And the image that came up for me immediately was like trying to sort through a kitchen cabinet. And there's like a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't belong, or you open it and it all falls out, right? It's like
Yes.
trying to find order, but just somehow it just feels messy. Maybe
Yes.
also because of the South Node being there, it's like, okay, I need to get rid of some stuff, I think. Um, I may or may not have had this incident like a couple of weeks ago that I opened my cabinet and I was like, oh, okay, this is there. Okay,
This is too much.
yeah, I need to clean this up.
Well, and it's so interesting as you're saying that, Britt, a lot of like the thing that's occurring to me as soon as you said like the kitchen cupboard or kitchen drawer, a lot of organizing, like home organizing people will say it's not just about organizing what you have. The first thing is to get rid of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you have three can openers, maybe you get rid of one or two. And when you mentioned the South Node, I'm like, I think that really is a clue for this Virgo eclipse that there part of the congestion or the messiness, because it's definitely an eclipse where I'm thinking about that messy or muddled concept for sure. And part of the way I'm kind of talking myself through it and guiding others is the messiness and the muddle is coming from an excess. Like there's a
Hmm.
congestion or there's just too much,
Yeah.
there's too much in your calendar or there's too much in the cupboard or there's too many ideas or there's too many tasks. And so part of it is maybe a little bit of that Virgo analysis and assessment
Yeah.
initially, like using some of that Virgo discernment. I have X amount of time. I can do two things. What are the two things that I want to focus on? And then the other three or four just get tucked away for another time, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what Virgo is so good at, right? It's also, I always think of, this association with the digestive system, like sorting out like what is a nutrient and what can
Yes.
what can be,
What's
what can go,
waste? What
what's
can we
waste,
just gonna let go
let's
through?
move through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
where Virgo really shines, that ability to pick. And I think it's really important in this retrograde and with this eclipse to remind ourselves of
Mm.
of that skill, that quality.
And yeah, I think that like the small intestine like assimilation piece is such a Virgo process. Like when we're digesting something, even if we use that as an analogy, it's like we're chewing it over to
Hmm.
see what of it we want to take in and continue with, and what of it we want to maybe discard or decline. And I think there is this undertone of like possibility in March, as we've talked about with like the
Hmm.
Mercury retrograde ruled by this Jupiter and Jupiter stationing direct and it being exalted. I wonder if the Virgo full moon is like, don't try and do it all.
Yeah.
Just pick a couple of like, maybe you've got five amazing things, but just pick two of them so that you can really enjoy them or be present with them or embody them. Rather, like if we use that digestive analogy, you never want to eat too much. It's very uncomfortable when you
Yeah.
overeat. If at like Christmas dinner or what have you, where you just have too much, it's like you do feel uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
so I think maybe intellectually with this eclipse or even emotionally, it's like let's not take on too much or say yes to
Mm.
too much. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So
that can be
it
tricky,
is.
of course, with all the Pisces energy because I feel like it's not very good at negating, right? It really
No,
wants to affirm. So,
no.
yeah, there's a challenge there, but a good reminder for people listening that that's, something to work on in this month.
Well, and I think, yeah, when you talked about the Virgo piece, it just made me thinking and kind of reminding me that I know we're all as we appropriately would be like focusing on the eclipse, but I always remind myself the South Node has been moving through Virgo for a little over a year now, since January of 2025. So some of the themes of this eclipse we have already been engaging with in
Yeah.
terms of like streamlining or decluttering or simplifying. I had been reading this book like a month ago, and I was like, that is the most, South Node Virgo eclipse book. It's called Goodbye Things, and the subtitle is like the new Japanese minimalism. And
Ah,
it's the most extreme approach on minimalist living that I think I've ever read. Like literally the living room, like the apartment has a mat that is what is slept on kind of thing. Like it is very extreme. And for me, that's not necessarily what I aspire to. I'm too much of a book person to start with, but the thinking behind our relationship to what we own
mm,
is really thought provoking. And it has actually helped me let go of some things that, I could have let go of ages ago. And so, wherever we are on this like spectrum of stuff, or I think the longer transit of the South Node in Virgo is a great time to be questioning our thoughts
yeah.
and ideas, even exploring consumerist tendencies or consumption tendencies, because I think the South Node in Virgo would be very anti-consumption or,
Yeah.
anti kind of consumeristic
Hmm.
ideas. And so this eclipse kind of feels like a punctuation point or an exclamation mark
Yeah.
on that longer journey. And the South Node will remain in Virgo until I think it's late July of
Mm,
26. So it's not as though we won't have encounters with this energy after the eclipse in early March. But I do feel like each of us is going to be able to like flush the pipes, move
yeah.
through something that has been a bit congested as we go through this eclipse early in the month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Britt, what about later in March? Is there anything on your mind or capturing your curiosity towards the end of the month?
Well, earlier in the month we have Venus entering Aries, and
Oh,
then at the
yes.
very end we have Venus entering Taurus. So it feels
Yes.
like Venus is moving, right? And
Mm-hmm.
those are some things to maybe talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. So for most of March, we've got Venus in Aries,
Yeah.
March the 6th to the 30th. What are you thinking about Venus in Aries for this go round?
Yeah, I mean it's quite a dignity shift, right? For Venus moving from Pisces into Aries. Of course, she also encounters Saturn and Neptune
Mm-hmm.
there, so that adds some challenge. I'm always, especially with Venus, with planets that lack that dignity or that are debilitated, I always find that quite exciting. Like, okay, what can we do differently here, right? So with Venus in Aries, of course, there's less of that classic relational quality of like, let's do this together, right? Venus is very independent in Aries and quite brash in a way, just like I'm just gonna do things my way and I don't really care if you follow along. I'm just like doing my own thing. But there's always a lesson there, right? It's not all bad, and it doesn't mean that we cannot do our relating or we cannot have fun, right? There's something about Venus and Aries that also reminds us of the need to stay individuated and not to
Mm.
merge too much, right? We've had that beautiful merging, transcendent quality of Venus in Pisces for a couple of weeks now, and we're moving now into a stage where we're just reminded of the fact that, oh, actually, I'm allowed to be my own person, and
Yeah.
that actually helps my relationships too because
Yes.
I feel independent and I feel like I can choose for myself. There's something
Yes.
about that is always a good lesson, even if
Mm.
it's not technically the best placement for Venus.
Mm.
There can be something useful in there.
I think you're really beautifully articulating, Britt, the kind of space between the technical criteria or different definition of a planet, maybe in detriment, like Venus in Aries or Mercury in Pisces, into the lived experience of like,
Yeah.
yes, technical criteria aside, how is it that we're going to be able to meet or express this planetary placement in our
Yeah.
choices? And I do think Venus in Aries, she really does fly that flag for independence, doesn't she? She kind
Mm-hmm.
of reminds us that we are allowed to, whether it's choose for ourselves or even express our own preferences,
Yes.
to say,
Yes.
this is actually what I want. Or I remember a friend of ours, they've got young children, and when they were teaching their kids about, like, how to be at a table, where there may be foods that they like and don't like, they encouraged their young daughter, instead of saying yuck or this is gross, if there was a food that she didn't like, they taught her to say, I don't prefer it.
I love that. I love that.
And it's
That's
such
so
a
good.
sweet kind of unique turn of
Yeah.
phrase. And then to come out of
Yes.
like a 4 or 5 year old, I don't prefer it. And it's just a lovely way of saying that's not for me.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that's sometimes in our society today, we are so focused on caring for others and connecting for others. And certainly as women, there can be a lot about suppressing your own needs or
Mm,
desires
mm,
to keep the peace or facilitate, cohesion. And Venus in Aries kind of just doesn't, she's not playing that game. She's
mm.
like, no, no, I'm my own entity and I have my own interests and needs and wants and dislikes. And so Venus in Aries, it isn't, this enchanted togetherness of Venus in Pisces that has been going on. But I think there is something, as you're saying, that we can all explore about remembering our
Yeah.
individuality, and also like being okay doing things on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. Really
Like, oh yeah,
flying
I'm going to
solo.
take myself off to a coffee by myself, or I'm just
Yep.
going to go do this activity and I don't have anyone to go with, but that's okay. There's no rule that says I
Mm.
can't do it if I'm not with others, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's something that can be really magnetic about that too, right? Even if that's if that if there's not like a classic dignity feature here, there's just something really powerful about choosing for yourself and saying, I want this, right? I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Aries as the exaltation of the sun, of
Yes.
like
Yes.
self-love, like
Yes.
I'm my own person, and
Yes.
sometimes that can really draw people in because they're like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice actually,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that shining of light. And I
Mm.
think, I know we've been talking a lot about Venus in Aries, but of course, by the time we get to the third week of the month, we will get the sun coming into
Yes.
Aries as
Yep.
well. So
Absolutely.
it's quite a big mood shift around the 20th for the equinox, where Pisces season kind of finishes and the sun goes into Aries. And that kind of radiance or confidence, like it gets even
Mm.
stronger,
Yeah. Yeah.
so the last kind of 10 days of the month is very much like, who am I not to kind of shine my light? Or who am I not to take up some space? Or who am I not to, be in charge of my own direction or experiences? So in some ways, I feel like Venus in Aries is like maybe warm up or prep for the sun coming
Yeah.
into Aries.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really feels like it is a fresh start, right? It's like the start of the new astrological year in a way with the sun moving
Yes.
into Aries.
Yeah.
And we really get this energy of independence, more spark, right? And also
Yeah.
this willingness to try something new and take risks, which feels really
Yes.
nice. Like, I'm just gonna do it because I'm interested in this. This feels exciting to me, and I may fail, but who cares, right? There's something really, yeah, nice about that. I think it's not the right word, nice, but there, yeah, it's empowering, I think is what I'm looking for.
Empowering, yeah, like the
Yeah.
other words I was getting from what you're saying, like energizing or
Yes.
enlivening.
Yeah.
There's kind of an enthusiasm, isn't there? With the sun in Aries. And certainly, like, I love what you're drawing out. I think it's one of the great gifts of the sign of Aries is that willingness to take a risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go
Like,
for it,
just go
right?
for it, have a go, see what happens.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think it is interesting, obviously as the sun goes into Aries this year, it will, bump into Neptune and Saturn that are kind of getting settled there. So it does maybe bring a little bit more clarity or a little bit more understanding for, I think, each of us about the longer Saturn in Aries or Neptune in Aries transit.
Yeah.
So kind of watch for that to kind of make itself known, I guess, after the 20th, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Venus in Taurus as well, which,
Yeah. Always happy to talk about Venus, right?
yes. And I mean, like for me, I feel like, yes, we have to say when we're talking about March that Venus comes into Taurus at the end of the month on the 30th. But I'm like, it's mostly a gift or a treat for April in terms of
Yes.
like
Yes.
most of the Venus in Taurus good stuff we get in April. But I'm looking forward to it. What are you looking forward to for Venus in Taurus this go round, Britt?
Oh, I always, I love Venus in Taurus. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a delight to the senses, really. It really feels like that, right? It's just, it's so nice. And this time, we'll be in the springtime, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So it really feels like a good time to just get that tangible connection with Earth and start planting some seeds and just being in the garden. I really look forward to that that more tangible quality of engaging with the senses for Venus and Taurus.
Yeah, it's so wonderful, isn't it? How, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere at least, the Taurus time, which I know with Venus in Taurus can be a little bit variable, but April is, even where we live, which is a very snowy, kind of long winter area, by April, we have got the bulbs starting to come up
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the trees are starting to kind of just have those little, it's like the bud of the leaf. It's not the actual leaf, but it's like you can see there's activity going. And the other thing I look forward to when Venus comes into Taurus each year, it's a real kind of roller coaster for Venus with her dignity, where, she's
Mm-hmm.
exalted in Pisces, then
Yeah.
she kind of goes super independent and like scatters and disconnects and disperses with Venus in Aries. And then she comes to Venus in Taurus. And that to me is like the calming, stabilizing, it's very
Mm.
grounding. It's like, what are those rhythms and rituals that either like reconnect me to my own body or really help ground me in my close relationships and friendships? And I
Yeah.
love that chance to just get back to the simplicity of those like little, maybe moments of connection or little delights, kind of little
Mm.
luxuries together.
Yeah, it really feels like a homecoming in many ways, like coming home to
Yes.
yourself, coming home to your land, right? Just to really grounding yourself in the present and
Yes.
here and now. That's always really lovely.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. So I very much look forward to Venus in Taurus. And one thing I'm really excited about for the Venus in Taurus 2026 vintage, if we can call it that, is that we will have Jupiter in Cancer while Venus is
Mm.
in Taurus.
Yes,
So there's
yes.
this lovely kind of sign-based sextile that is very fruitful and very generative and really very generous as well.
Yeah.
And I think, there'll be a period in April where Venus and Jupiter interact exactly by degree, but just the
Mm.
whole kind of 4 weeks that Venus is in Taurus, which is the very last part of March and then into April, to me, like it feels cooling and soothing and like making agreements or getting long-term like supports or plans in place. It feels very cohesive and it feels like, doing what's good for growth and evolution and maybe even for some healing as well.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful.
It just feels so, I mean, Venus and Taurus, I know we always have a love fest on her for sure.
Earthy Venus gals.
Yeah, we love our Venus in the earth signs. It's, I mean,
Yes.
when you said the garden, I'm like, I was on the seed website yesterday just starting to plan. I'm like, Kelly, you don't need to order yet. There's still too much snow, but that's such a beautiful thing. And actually I saved there's a flower like echinacea or purple coneflower. It's a perennial kind of a flowering plant that is really great for like the birds and the bees and the buzzing things, the butterflies. And I did buy some seed from this great organic seed supplier and planted it over the last few years. And this year I'm like, I think if I just cut all the tops off and put them in like a dry spot, I'm gonna have a lot of seed I can use. So it's It's just sitting in this like the second bathroom downstairs that we never use. There's just like a tray with this. It's a hot mess, but I'm just waiting for the snow to melt and I'm just going to take all those seeds out.
Yes.
And that idea of like nature's abundance feeding more of nature's abundance, like the seeds
Yeah.
from last year
Mm,
now creating plants that I will take into further parts of the garden this year.
yeah.
So
Oh, I love
yeah,
that. That's so
yeah.
beautiful.
So that's my earthy Venus vibes. So good. I'm like, I'm imagining being in the gardens already.
It's
Um,
gonna happen. It's gonna
it's gonna get
happen.
here before we know it. There's one other thing, Britt. I know we don't have much longer.
Mm,
The last week of I was gonna say April, but March. We're back in March. We have like Saturn and Pluto coming into a sextile, like Saturn
mm,
in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, and then the sun kind of rolling through.
mm,
And this is like kind of from the 25th to the 28th of March. And it kind of caught my attention because, we've got slower moving planets, Saturn and Pluto, starting to connect with each other from
mm.
signs that are still really quite new for both of them. And then
Yeah.
the sun coming in to kind of light up or, draw attention to. And I wondered about this as a time where people are starting to like breathe new life and light into the major restructuring plans that have been
Yeah.
going on. Like maybe bringing a little bit of that seasonal energy of all the stuff that you've been like pulling apart and trying to put back together in different ways over the last few months. I wonder if there's some real kind of concrete, oh, this is how it's going to come together. And that's
Mm.
part of what this late March period is helpful for, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it just, it's the opening sextile of this transit, which
Yes.
was,
Yeah.
for people that remember this, this was the transit that really defined 2020, the
Hmm.
Saturn-Pluto conjunction, right? So
Hmm.
now we get to 6 years later, we're at this point where these planets start interacting again, but now in a more harmonious way, right? With the sextile being of the nature of Venus. So there's a real potential for, working with this energy constructively and,
Yeah.
yeah, doing that restructuring in a way that, could potentially benefit.
And I think that's a beautiful piece too, Brett, to bring in like the connection between 2026's Saturn Pluto aspect and 2020 Saturn Pluto aspect. And I think setting aside the kind of collective shared kind of pieces of 2020, for each of us to think individually about how we contemplated changing our lives and our
Mm,
existence as a
yeah.
like there was the collective thing of like this is going on and countries are doing all kinds of safety protocols or what have you to manage the pandemic. But what did it mean for each of you in your own
Yeah.
life? Like it, because it meant something different for everybody. For
Yeah.
some people, it was like a welcome change in
Mm,
terms of not having to do certain things that they were doing before. For other people, it was like an increase in stress and chaos because it had such an impact. So that's what I mean. Like, what did it mean for you? And
mm,
what did it make you think about you would want to change if you could? And I
yeah.
think there's something about this late March period, and then obviously continuing on after late March is like, are there small or large elements of the changes that maybe first seeded in me back in 2020 that I
Mm,
might want to build on or cultivate further at this
yeah.
point in time?
Yeah. Beautiful. Especially then
Yeah.
with that sun in Aries being there, it
Yes.
feels very potent.
That's it feels really potent. And I
Mm,
think I'm also like, oh yeah, the sun is going to conjunct Saturn in Aries for the first time. And there's a lot of technical features that could go into that aspect, but it just feels like a seeding of something.
mhm.
And knowing that we'll have Saturn in Aries for the next kind of 2 and a bit years, it's like I'm seeding something that'll be a guardrail or a through line or a like a goal or a project that I stay steady and focused on for the next couple of years. I mean, the simple thing would be like, what is one goal related to the topic of your Aries house that
Mhm.
2 years from now you would like to say, I've achieved this or I've completed this or that's been dealt with? That would be like just a really simple way, I think, of pulling into that as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun, Britt. I don't know if we have any questions today. And that's okay
Yeah,
if we
let's
don't.
check.
I feel
There's a
like
few
we've covered so many
comments.
things.
Yeah, we have, and I'm proud of us with the Mercury station.
I know. I'm
It's
like,
like
we're just like locked
challenging.
in and we're like, we're gonna go.
Yeah, always challenging to do something like that.
Yeah,
Let's see.
yesterday in Q&As with students, I couldn't get my words. I was like, Mercury, oh no.
Let's see. There's some people saying, and Amanda's saying my birthday is March 2nd. Sounds like an awesome start to my new year. Happy early birthday. Let's
Yeah, happy birthday
see.
to all the Pisces people and the
Yeah,
early Aries, which will be birthday season in March.
people have whimsy in their thoughts in the morning with the morning sun. I think people are feeling excited and happy. That's good.
That's
We were
so
taught to say, I
beautiful.
don't fancy that. That's in response to that.
Oh,
Venus
yes, I
at
don't
the dinner
prefer that.
table.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like there's no questions, just lots of comments.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it looks like Surgery Simon is commenting about Jupiter in the first house with weight gain, which is
Mm,
definitely a side effect of transiting Jupiter in the first house, a common
yeah.
side effect, which isn't often spoken about. Jupiter just makes things bigger in a
Yep.
non-denominational like
Mm-hmm.
way. So
Yep. Yep.
if everything gets bigger, sometimes it's your body, for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And Diane sharing about her experience in the pandemic, working in
Yeah.
long-term care. Very, very sad. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder for Diane, anyone else, because my stepdaughter was working in the hospital system during 2020. So it was very very traumatic for people in healthcare. Uh I wonder what you had to learn about how to take care of yourself
Mm,
during something like that and how
yes.
that may be something to build on at this point. And then the other piece is like rituals around grieving or
Mm,
making space to acknowledge a loss. Not that that's necessarily what Diane or others are dealing with now, but
yeah.
it's something in modern society we don't do very well is to acknowledge
Mm,
like the grief process. Uh yeah, because as we get further away in time from 2020, each of us will be like reflecting on or revisiting elements of that experience in different ways. And,
yeah.
sometimes we have to get a certain distance away to feel like nervous system wise, at least, we're like safe enough to do
Mm.
some of the deeper processing, which is always healing and cathartic.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have to think about the work of Francis Weller, who does a lot on grief work.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think like grief like a river or like a deep water, which feels, also
mm.
resonant with the Pisces
The
stuff that we're
Pisces, the
talking
Greek water.
about now. But
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and it definitely like, those themes correspond to also Saturn Pluto, with both of them having to do
Yeah.
with time and endings and transformation. So that
Yeah.
feels like a really good point to add in here. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like, I'm like, oh, yeah, we talked a lot about Mercury and Pisces and the dreaming. I sometimes think about Mercury in a water sign as having healing conversations or being able to
Mm,
find words to like identify or talk about your feelings and emotions with. So that idea of like
yeah.
putting feelings into words, which doesn't seem like it would make a difference, but it
Mm,
really calms the psyche down to be able to label, um, oh, it was this kind of feeling or it was that kind of experience. So I
yeah.
wonder if that's one of the kind of like hidden, river possibilities of March is, meandering through the waters and just checking in emotionally with yourself as you go.
Yeah, and this reminds me also of like for some people, verbal processing is super important. Like I have friends and we send voice messages to each other and just
Yes.
blurting out whatever is on our minds, and then the other person just listens and sometimes says something, interesting or helpful, but often it's just more about me processing what I'm feeling by just talking about it and letting it all flow. And
Yes.
my friends doing the same with me. And that can be very helpful to have spaces like that where you can just blurt out and be chaotic and just express all those
Yes.
feelings without them having to make sense, right? Also,
Yes.
Mercury and Pisces is not always good
Yes.
at just being on point and on target, but that's okay for this because there's so much release that can happen through just letting things move through you.
Totally. And, as humans, our brains don't always work in totally linear,
Mm,
structured ways. We bounce around between memory and story, and
yeah.
it doesn't always seem coherent as you're going through. But on reflection, you're like, oh, yeah, those links or
Mm,
those ties or the meaning that this thing led to over here it's a lovely. It is a bit meandering, but I think it's very rich in its meaning and its evocative
mm,
piece.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, we could talk about story for days with
Yes,
Mercury
we
retro in
could.
Pisces.
We could.
Oh my gosh. So this has been great. Britt, thank you so much for joining me for another month ahead astrology overview session. Where can people find out more about you? What have you got going on with your astrology coming up and where can they find you?
Yes, good question. I do have things going on in my life.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I do consultations. You can find my work at somaticastrology.co. I work a lot with the body, so integrating astrology into the body to make it really juicy, embodied, and something that you can feel and live through and doesn't just stay in the head and doesn't just stay intellectual. So you can find me there. I also write on Substack, and Kelly can share that link because I actually don't
Yes.
know the link. I
Yes,
don't.
we'll put it in the show
I have a
notes. Yes.
URL, but it's like many different things. So yeah, I do like writing, and I offer also somatic coaching sessions in my astrology work. So if you like to work long term and really get to the nitty gritty of how to move through your chart, then that's something I offer as well.
Fantastic. Oh, sounds so rich and juicy, Britt. So we'll put all the links for Britt in the show notes below. You can always find out more about me at kellysastrology.com. Maybe two things for March. I will be teaching a 2-day retreat in France at the end of the month. So if you'd like to join me, if that's accessible for you, pop over to my website, kellysastrology.com, and look at the calendar page where you can find the details. We'll put that link in the show notes below. My live webinar for March is on the 14th of the month, and it's on a very funny sounding but super useful ancient technique called conditions of maltreatment. So that'll be a live 90-minute webinar on Saturday, the 14th of March. So if you want details about that, that's at the on the homepage of kellysastrology.com. So we appreciate you joining us. If you have any further comments, you are welcome to drop them in the comments section below. And we look forward to catching up with you next month to talk about the astrology of April. Thanks
Yeah.
again, Britt.
Thank you. It was fun.
Okay, see you all